I spent my whole life preaching about love, forgiveness, and redemption. Yet now, lying in this stark hospital bed with the air thick with antiseptic and finality, I realize I never dared to fully live by the very gospel I proclaimed. The monitors, beside me, beep a slow, steady rhythm. It reminds me of a clock counting down the last few moments of my life. Outside the window, dusk is falling over the town I have served for nearly 50 years. In the gathering gloom, I find myself haunted not by the sins of others I once so fervently condemned, but by my own. If you could confess one thing today, what would it be? Share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes the truth we hide is the one thing that can set someone else free. My name is Samuel Whitmore. Pastor Samuel Whitmore, as most have called me since I was ordained in 1967. 83 years of life now weigh heavy on my chest, heavier than the oxygen tube that's helping me breathe. I was once a robust man, proud and strong, walking the aisle of St. Andrew's Church with a Bible in hand and a booming voice that filled the rafters. Now I am frail, a shadow of that man, waiting for the end with nothing but my memories and my regrets for company. The room is small but tidy. A wooden cross hangs above the bed, its once vibrant paint now faded with time. On the bedside table sits a single photograph, a younger me, surrounded by the congregation on the day of the church's 100th anniversary. So many familiar faces, many now long gone. I wonder what they would say if they knew the truth about the man they trusted so dearly, the truth I hid from everyone. The secret I have carried in silence. Her name was Margaret. I met her in the summer of 1972. She was newly married to Robert Langley, a carpenter and devoted church member. Margaret had the voice of an angel and fingers that danced over the organ, keys with effortless grace. Every Sunday morning, her music filled the sanctuary with a beauty that words could not capture. She was kindness itself, humble, generous, always with a ready smile for anyone who crossed her path, and she was utterly forbidden. I was a young pastor then, burning with ambition and purity. I told myself I was above temptation, that the vows I had taken to the Lord and to my community were unbreakable. But day by day, Sunday after Sunday, I felt a bond forming between Margaret and me, a bond that neither of us spoke aloud, but both of us knew was there. It was a rainy Tuesday evening in October when the dam finally broke. The choir had finished rehearsals, and the last of the congregation had drifted out into the misty night. Margaret lingered at the piano, her fingers idly pressing a soft, melancholic tune into the air. I stood at the back of the sanctuary, watching her, feeling the heavy beat of my heart in my chest. She looked up, and our eyes met across the empty pews. It was a moment that seemed to stretch forever. No words, no rational thought, just two lonely souls drawn together by something deeper than logic or faith. I crossed the floor slowly, almost against my will. When I reached her, I said nothing. She stood up, and for one long, aching second, we simply stared at each other. And then I kissed her. It was a desperate, trembling kiss, the kind that comes from years of silent yearning bursting to the surface. She kissed me back, her hands trembling against my chest. The world fell away. The church, our vows, our lives, everything crumbled into that stolen moment. And then, just as suddenly it ended, Margaret pulled away, tears brimming in her eyes. She whispered, "We can't," and fled into the night, her footsteps echoing against the stone floor. I stood there alone, my heart breaking with a guilt so fierce it made me sick. We never spoke of it again. We maintained the polite, careful distance that propriety demanded. She remained the faithful wife. I remained the revered pastor. Outwardly, nothing had changed, but inside everything was different. Every time I stood at the pulpit, I felt like a liar. Every hymn she played was a bittersweet wound. I buried myself in my work, trying to atone in secret. I visited the sick. More often, I led Bible studies with greater fervor. I gave to the poor, counseled the broken, and baptized the newborn. I told myself it was enough, that deeds could erase desire, but the heart is not so easily deceived. Robert died young, collapsing in his workshop one grey December morning. Margaret wore black to the funeral, her face pale and drawn. I stood at the graveside, delivering the eulogy with trembling hands. When it was over, she looked at me once, just once, and in her eyes I saw everything we had lost. Soon after, she moved away, leaving behind the town, the church, and the memories. She remarried briefly, but it didn't last. I heard whispers, now and then, of her life, teaching piano in another town, volunteering at local shelters, but I never reached out. I couldn't. I was too much of a coward. The years wore on, seasons changed, new families filled the pews at St. Andrew's. I baptized their babies, married their children, buried their dead. Life marched forward, relentless and indifferent, and yet somewhere deep inside I remained frozen in that rainy October evening, locked in a moment of forbidden love. A week ago, I learned that Margaret had died. Cancer, they said. Quietly, alone. Something inside me shattered when I heard the news. All the years of silence, all the words unsaid, came rushing back like a flood. And I knew then that I could not leave this world with this lie still rotting in my soul. So I asked the elders of the church, Thomas, Mary, David, Ruth, and Jonathan, to come. The men and women who had trusted me, loved me, looked to me for spiritual guidance. They gathered at my bedside today, their faces worn with age but bright with love and concern. I have sinned, I began, my voice little more than a rasp. Not in action, but in heart. I loved a woman who was not mine to love. I betrayed my calling, my vows, and myself. I expected anger, disgust, disappointment. Instead, there was only silence, a heavy, sacred silence, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Finally, Thomas, my oldest friend, spoke. Pastor, you taught us that grace is greater than sin, that no heart is beyond redemption. Tears blurred my vision. I nodded weakly. We all have our burdens, Mary added gently. Thank you for trusting us with yours. One by one, they laid their hands upon me, praying quietly for my soul, not as judges, but as fellow travelers on this broken road of life. And in that moment, I felt it, the release. The weight that had bent my shoulders for decades lifted, not entirely, but enough. I close my eyes now and I see her, Margaret, young and smiling, her hands dancing over the piano keys. I pray she has found the peace that so long eluded me. If you're carrying a secret, if shame is eating away at your spirit, hear me. Confession is not the end. It's the beginning, the first step out of darkness and into grace. Don't wait until your final breath to be free. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe, and share your own truth in the comments. Your story matters, and sometimes speaking it aloud is the bravest prayer you'll ever say.